Have you ever watched a championship-caliber team stand at the edge of greatness, reach out to grab the missing piece, only to have it vanish like smoke through their fingers? That's not just disappointment. That's organizational trauma that can haunt a franchise for years. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're dissecting one of the most gut-wrenching near misses in recent NHL trade deadline history, and the shockwaves are still reverberating through the Atlantic Division like an earthquake that won't stop trembling. The Boston Bruins didn't just lose out on Rasmus Andersson, they lost him after being told they'd won. Let me paint the picture of this absolute nightmare scenario for you. According to elite insider Elliotte Friedman, who has built a career on being right when it matters most, the Bruins weren't just in the conversation for Calgary's top-pairing defenseman. They were leading the race. They had pole position. Reports indicated that Boston was the only team granted permission to negotiate a contract extension with Andersson's camp, which in NHL circles is basically the equivalent of being handed the keys to the car before you've even signed the paperwork. The package they reportedly assembled wasn't some bargain bin offer either. We're talking about Mason Lohrei, a legitimate blue-chip defensive prospect with top-pairing upside, plus a 2026 first-round pick. That's not kicking tires. That's mortgaging significant future assets for a win-now move. General Manager Don Sweeney was clearly sending a message to his locker room, we're going for it. The window is now. But then, in a plot twist worthy of a Hollywood thriller, the Vegas Golden Knights materialized like phantoms and stole the deal right from under Boston's nose. This isn't just about missing out on a player. This is about the psychological devastation of believing you've solved your biggest problem, only to wake up and realize it was all a mirage. Think about the historical parallels here. How many times have we seen contending teams identify their fatal flaw, get tantalizingly close to fixing it, and then watch helplessly as another franchise swoops in? It happened to Toronto with various deadline targets. It happened to Edmonton in past years. The pattern is always the same. Initial euphoria, followed by crushing disappointment, followed by desperate scrambling for Plan B. The Bruins' blue line has been their Achilles heel for the better part of 2 seasons. They need a right-shot defenseman who can move the puck under pressure, transition cleanly out of the defensive zone, and hold up against elite competition in a 7-game playoff series. Andersson checked every single box. He's a minute-munching workhorse who can quarterback a power play and doesn't wilt when the intensity ratchets up in April and May. Losing him doesn't just leave a hole, it leaves a crater that everyone in the organization can see and feel. What makes this particularly brutal is the timing. We're not talking about early February when there's still time to pivot and explore alternatives. We're talking about late January with the March 6th trade deadline approaching like a freight train. Every day that passes without a solution is a day closer to entering the playoffs with the same defensive vulnerabilities that have plagued them. The pressure on Don Sweeney has escalated from significant to suffocating. He showed his hand by offering Lohrei and a first-rounder, which means every general manager in the league now knows Boston is desperate and willing to pay premium prices. That's not a negotiating advantage. That's blood in the water, and the Sharks are circling. So, where do the Bruins turn now that their primary target has been ripped away? This is where the situation transitions from disappointing to potentially catastrophic. The remaining options on the trade market aren't Rasmus Andersson. They're not even close. We're looking at a significant downgrade. No matter which direction Boston pivots, and each alternative comes with its own set of complications that could haunt the franchise for years. Let's start with the most intriguing possibility: a reunion with Dougie Hamilton from the New Jersey Devils. On paper, Hamilton brings elite offensive production from the blue line. He can quarterback a power play, he generates shots from distance, and he has the pedigree of playing meaningful games. But, and this is a massive but, Hamilton comes with an anchor-weight contract that carries a $9 million cap hit through 2027. For a team already navigating salary cap constraints, absorbing that deal would require significant financial gymnastics. You'd likely need New Jersey to retain salary, which increases the cost in assets. Plus, Hamilton has a modified no-trade clause, meaning he controls his own destiny to some degree. Is he even willing to waive for Boston? Beyond the financial complications, there's the stylistic question. Hamilton is not a shutdown defenseman. He's not the guy you deploy against Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews when you desperately need a stop in Game 7. He's an offensive catalyst who can be a liability in his own zone when the game gets physical and grinding. Is that really what Boston needs? Or is it just another shiny object that doesn't address the fundamental structural weakness? Then we have the safer, more conservative options, players like Nate Schmidt from Winnipeg or Connor Murphy from Chicago. These are steady, reliable, stay-at-home defensemen who won't embarrass you, but also won't change the trajectory of your playoff run. If Boston settles for Schmidt or Murphy after being on the verge of landing Andersson, it's the equivalent of going to a steakhouse planning to order the prime ribeye and walking out with a chicken Caesar salad. Sure, it fills the stomach, but it doesn't satisfy the craving. The analytics tell a harsh story here. Andersson drives possession, transitions the puck efficiently, and elevates his partners. Schmidt and Murphy are replacement level in terms of puck-moving ability. They're defensive zone specialists who clear the crease and block shots, but don't generate offense or ignite breakouts. If the Bruins acquire one of these players, they're essentially admitting that they've downgraded their ambitions from Stanley Cup contender to hopefully competitive in the first round. Now, let's examine the ripple effects across the division, because Boston's failure creates opportunities for their rivals. If the Bruins can't upgrade their defense, teams like Florida, Toronto, and even the surging Tampa Bay Lightning gain a psychological edge. They know Boston's weakness hasn't been addressed. They know that in a playoff series, they can exploit that vulnerability by forechecking aggressively and forcing Boston's defensemen into high-pressure situations where mistakes happen. Meanwhile, up in Montreal, a completely different drama is unfolding that could have massive implications for the trade market. Patrik Laine is on the verge of returning from a core muscle surgery that has kept him sidelined since mid-October, and his impending activation is creating a fascinating dilemma for Kent Hughes and the Canadiens management team. During Laine's absence, something unexpected happened. The young core in Montreal found chemistry, the offense started clicking, and the team discovered an identity built around speed, youth, and collective effort. Now, Laine is healthy, and the question becomes, where does a 40-goal scorer fit into a lineup that's been functioning without him? This isn't a simple plug-and-play situation. Hockey chemistry is fragile. You can't just insert a star player into a lineup that's been humming along and expect everything to seamlessly adjust. Laine needs minutes. He needs power play time. He needs the puck on his stick in high-danger areas to be effective. But if you force-feed him those opportunities, do you stunt the development of Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, or the other young players who have been carrying the offensive load? According to Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette, the Canadiens are in a precarious position. You can't bury a talent like Laine on the third line. It would be organizational malpractice and would tank his trade value. But if you showcase him on the top line and top power play unit, you risk disrupting the chemistry that's been built organically over the past 3 months. The strategy appears to be calculated: get Laine healthy, put him in high-visibility situations, let him score a few highlight reel goals, and then dangle him to desperate contenders before the deadline. But what if it backfires? What if Laine looks rusty after months away from game action? What if his presence creates friction in the locker room or disrupts the development trajectory of the younger players? Then Montreal is stuck with an $8.7 million cap hit for a player who doesn't fit their long-term rebuild timeline and whose trade value has cratered. The risk-reward calculation here is absolutely brutal. As we barrel toward March 6th, the contrasting narratives in Boston and Montreal offer a masterclass in the high-stakes chess match that defines NHL trade deadline strategy. One franchise is desperately trying to add the final piece to a championship puzzle, while the other is meticulously calculating the perfect moment to cash in an asset before its value evaporates. Both are walking tightropes, and one wrong step could define the next half-decade of their respective franchises. For the Bruins, the psychological weight of the Andersson miss cannot be overstated. This wasn't a situation where they got outbid by a small margin or where the player chose another destination for personal reasons. They were told they were in the driver's seat, they assembled a premium package, and then they got blindsided. That kind of organizational trauma lingers. Players in the locker room know that management tried to upgrade and failed. That plants a seed of doubt. Are we really good enough? Does the front office believe in us? Or are they just going through the motions? Don Sweeney now faces an impossible task. Find a defenseman who can genuinely move the needle without panic buying and overpaying for a consolation prize. History is littered with examples of teams that missed their primary target and then made desperate secondary moves that set the franchise back years. The 2019 Ottawa Senators trading for Matt Duchene, only to watch him walk in free agency. The 2020 Minnesota Wild overpaying for Jason Zucker. These are cautionary tales of what happens when fear drives decision-making instead of strategy. If Sweeney pulls off a miracle and lands a legitimate top-four defenseman who addresses Boston's transition game, he'll be hailed as a genius who navigated a crisis. If he settles for a depth piece and the Bruins get bounced in the first round because they couldn't break out of their own zone under playoff pressure, the calls for his job will be deafening. There's no middle ground here. It's either redemption or catastrophe. In Montreal, the Patrik Laine situation is about to reach its climax, and the next 3 weeks will reveal whether Kent Hughes is a master asset manager or whether he's been backed into a corner with no good options. The voice of the fan base is split down the middle. Half of Montreal is dreaming of Laine rediscovering his 40-goal form and becoming a cornerstone piece. The other half is terrified that his return will disrupt the development of the young core or worse, that he'll struggle and become an immovable contract that handcuffs the franchise for years. If Laine returns and immediately starts scoring, let's say he pots 5 goals in his first 10 games, the phone lines in Montreal will melt. Contending teams will be calling with offers, desperate to add a proven goal scorer for their playoff push. But if he looks tentative, if the timing isn't there, if the chemistry doesn't materialize, then Hughes is stuck holding a depreciating asset with limited options. The summer becomes the only realistic window to move him, and by then the leverage is gone. Here's the brutal reality that both franchises are facing. The NHL is a results-driven business where intentions and effort mean nothing if you don't execute. Boston getting close to Andersson is meaningless if they don't find a solution. Montreal having a healthy Laine is meaningless if they can't either integrate him successfully or convert him into assets that accelerate the rebuild. The margin for error is razor thin, and the consequences of failure are measured in years, not games. Now, I need to hear from you, because this is where the real debate happens. Bruins fans, be brutally honest with me. Are you relieved that Mason Lohrei is still in the organization, or are you sick to your stomach that management couldn't close the deal on Andersson? And Canadiens fans, what's your verdict on the Laine situation? Do you showcase him for 2 weeks and flip him to the highest bidder, or do you keep him and try to make it work long-term? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's get a Real conversation going. Smash that like button if you want us to keep tracking every twist and turn of this deadline chaos, and I'll see you in the next one.